Assembly of the Gambia, coming to you live from the National Assembly of the Gambia in the capital city, Banjul. You're watching Eyeafrica Live. I am Osman Jatta, bringing you all the latest details about today's sitting. And in a short while, you will be also hearing from my co-host, who is no other person but Mr. Nene Bojang. And today's event is an important one, as the Finance Minister of the Gambia is expected to appear before MPs to submit what is known as the estimates and expenditures of the following year, which is 2022, the year 2022, for consideration and approval by the Parliament. Today's session is very significant as it demonstrates the existence of the two important principles, that is the principle of separation of powers and checks and balances. As we know, in every given democratic state, there exist three organs of government: the Parliament, which is the organ of government responsible for enacting laws or the making of laws in the state, and the parliamentarians are vested with the power of coming up with laws. Equally as well, we have the judiciary, which is the executive organ of government responsible for reviewing and interpreting laws made by the parliamentarians in Parliament. And equally as well, we have the executive organ of government. So today's session is an important one, and anytime from now, the event would commence. Okay.
National Assembly considered and approved the said estimates with amendment on Monday, 25th of October, 2021. As a result, and pursuant to Section 1523 of the Constitution and Standing Order Clause 87, Subclause 2, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs is here today to introduce the Appropriation Bill 2022 for consideration and enactment by this August Assembly. In introducing the bill and in accordance with Standing Order 87.4, the Honorable Minister will set out any amendments made to the estimates, present and outline government's fiscal policies and programs for the year 2022, commonly known as the budget speech. Thank you all for your kind attention. Clerk, can we proceed, please? Thank you.
Correction and approval of records of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, 25th October, 2021.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021 is before us for correction and approval. Can any honorable member please move a motion for correction and approval of the record of proceedings, votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021. I'll take for you, Jarrell, honorable member.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to move the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, 25th October, 2021 be corrected and approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any seconder? Yes, Busumbala.
Thank you, ma'am. I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021 be approved. Any issues, observations, or corrections from honorable members? And we start with the front page. Any issues on the front page? Otherwise, we move to page 2. Sorry, page 1. And check the attendance to ensure that everybody is correctly captured, either absent or present. Page 1, no corrections on page 1. Muniz, anything on page 1? No. Page 2. Yes, honorable member for Talinding. Page 2,
my name was captured in the absentees list on number 5.
East.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. The name tag on phony benefit does not match with what you have here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the continuous corrections. Sir Bulun Kakunda.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was also captured on the absentees list while I was here on. Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
On Monday?
Yes.
We will confirm that, but yes, we will check with the records.
Honorable, I was here.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Level
I
office
think
will confirm that.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, only is.
Yes, thank you. I believe Honorable Tunkarat Kantora was here, was present.
Any more? Any more corrections on page 2? Yes, Funi Bondali, page 2. Your mic, please.
We have Honorable Fatumata Njai, and as he was not here, and the Honorable Alaji Sanku Jammeh also. They were absent.
Maybe she was absent. It's always good to ensure that the records are correct. Any more corrections on page 2? No? Page 3 then? Yes, Simon Mentere.
Honorable Speaker, for record purpose, you have here the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sittings of Saturday, 23rd October 2021 as the corrected was approved as 2 records of the vote. For record purpose, there's nothing like the National Assembly sittings of Saturday.
No, it's okay. It's all right. We will move. Thank you. I think he has been corrected. Sorry. Yes, Jimara.
Thank you very much, Ma. The Honorable Member for Opinion moved for the Assembly to consider and approve the record of vote and proceeding of the National Assembly sitting of Saturday, 23rd October 2021. You have the Honorable Member for Jimara seconded the motion. It was not me. I think it was Honorable Member for Jara Central who seconded it. Yes.
Thank you. Any more observations on page 3? No? Page 4? Yes, Jara is.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, at page 4, Honorable Speaker Keba Kebaro indicate. I think at any point in time, when you have the sense in the committee of session, the Speaker seems to be Speaker and to be addressed as Honorable Chair as opposed to Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Page 4? Page 4? Yanija? Okay. Page 5 then. Yes, Sabah Sanjal. Page 5.
Yes, page 5 or page 6? No, I have problem with page 6.
Yes.
Page 6. On the first paragraph, the Minister of Gender, Women, Children and Social Welfare, the use of gender is missing there. Yes, gender, children, and social welfare. Now coming down, after suspension of the assembly, I have problem with timing. Let me just read, and I stand to be corrected. At 42 minutes after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the Honorable Speaker suspended the sitting for prayers, time, and long break. If you come for on resumption, at 43 minutes after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the assembly resumed. So it means between suspension and...
I think it's an error.
Exactly, so it needs to be rectified.
It's definitely an error.
Yeah. 1 minute.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was my...
Any more observations on page 6? Honorable members? Page 7?
Page 6.
Page 6. Yes, there are...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Wherever it appears, Honorable Speaker should be changed to Honorable Chair, Committee of Supply. Thank you.
Lua Fuladu? Are we on page 6?
Yes, page 7. Page 7. Yes, the first line, at 4 minutes after 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I believe it should be in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Page 7. On the invitation of the Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs reported to the Assembly what transpired at the Committee of Supply and moved ED. Thank you.
Either on page 7 or on any other page. And I take it that we are all satisfied with the records as corrected. Thank you very much. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 25th of October, 2021 be approved with amendments. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you. Can we proceed? Can you...
Bill, Appropriation Bill 2022, first reading by the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs.
Thank you very much, Clark. May I now invite the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs to table the bill. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
I beg to move that the bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Services of the Government of the Gambia for the period 1st January 2022 to 31st December 2022, both dates inclusive, be read a second time. More than a year ago, after the coronavirus outbreak was declared a global pandemic, economies around the world continue to grapple with the multidimensional impact of the deadly virus. In the first half of 2021, the prospect for a return to normalcy was high, anchored mainly on the massive rollout of vaccination and a significant decline in the number of cases and fatalities from the virus. However, the recent emergence of new strains, especially the more contagious Delta variant, has diminished these prospects for normalcy and in effect rendered the dream a shifting goalpost. Mirroring regional trends, the Gambia experienced a third wave of COVID-19 infections in early 2021. This new surge slowed down prospects for economic recovery, particularly within the tourism and hospitality industry. After struggling with the closure of businesses and schools, the slowdown of economic activities and a halt in tourism during the 2020, the Gambia had projected the start of an economic recovery in 2021 as economic activity began showing early signs of recovery from the pandemic-induced contraction registered in 2020. In March 2021, government launched a massive vaccination campaign supported by COVAX initiative and the World Bank. However, vaccine hesitancy and supply side constraints affected this campaign. The arrival of additional vaccines donated by the United States and French governments, combined with enhanced public sensitization, has boosted the vaccination rate to reach 13% of the target population as at end October 2021. Meanwhile, government will continue efforts to accelerate the vaccine rollout and intensify communication to tackle vaccine hesitancy. In the 2022 fiscal year and over the medium term, government is committed to continue its efforts in strengthening fiscal consolidation, improve domestic resource mobilization, and promote economic growth, which is not only sustainable but inclusive. Developments in the global economy. Although at a weaker pace, global economic recovery is continuing even as the pandemic resurges. The October 2021 World Economic Outlook projects global growth at 5.9%. Growth prospects for advanced countries in 2021 is forecasted at 5.2%. This reflects supply disruption in the United States and Germany, as well as a 3-month state of emergency in Japan as infection hit a record level in the country. The forecast of emerging markets and developing countries has improved to 6.4% as improved assessment for some commodities exporters outweighs drags from the pandemic's development, including stronger than expected domestic demand in key regional economies. The growth forecast for the low-income countries, developing countries group has been revised downwards to 3% as the slow rollout of vaccines is the main factor weighing on their recovery. Despite temporary disruptions, global trade volumes are expected to grow by 10% in 2021. The overall trade recovery conceals a bleak outlook for tourism-dependent economies and cross-border services. Countries where tourism and travels account for a larger share of GDP are expected to suffer larger declines in activities. Travel restrictions and lingering fears of contagion are likely to limit cross-border tourist activities unless virus transmission decline even further. Labor market recovery is underway but uneven. Employment around the world remains below its pre-pandemic levels, reflecting a mix of negative output gaps, worker fears of on-the-job infection, and labor demand changes. The employment recovery is expected to lack output for most economies. Inflation has been on the rise amid uncertainties. The increase in inflation reflects a combination of pandemic-induced supply-demand mismatch, rising commodity prices, and policy-related developments. Pandemic outbreaks in critical global supply chain links have resulted in longer than expected supply disruptions, further fueling inflation in many countries. Commodity prices have continued their upward trend as a result of increased economic activities, with oil prices expected to increase close to 60% above their low base in 2020, Non-oil commodity prices are expected to rise almost 30% above their 2020 levels, reflecting stronger increases in the price of metals and food in recent months. In some emerging and developing economies, price pressures are expected to persist due to elevated food prices, lag effects of higher oil prices and exchange rate depreciation, increasing the prices of import goods. In some countries in sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East and Central Asia, food prices have increased significantly amid shortages of imported goods, further adding to overall inflation. Undeniably, great uncertainty surrounds inflation prospects, and this primarily stems from the pandemic, the duration of supply disruption, and how inflation expectation may evolve. The pandemic and climate change threatens to exacerbate the economic divergence among the world economies, further aggravated by the large disparities in vaccine access. Whilst almost 60% of the population in advanced countries are fully vaccinated, about 96% of the population in low-income countries remain unvaccinated. It is hoped that some emerging market economies will gain broad vaccine access by end 2022. Multilateral efforts to speed up global vaccines remain the top policy priorities that will help save millions of lives, prevent the emergence of new variants, and accelerate global economic recovery. Recent developments have made it abundantly clear that we are all in this together, and the pandemic is not over yet anywhere until it is over everywhere. The global community must step up efforts to ensure equitable vaccine access for every country, overcome vaccine hesitancy, and secure better economic prospects for all. Impact of the global economy on the domestic economy. On the domestic front, similar to the global economy, economic recovery in the Gambia is underway, albeit at a slower pace due to the expected third wave of coronavirus which emerged in July. Growth is expected to rebound from negative 0.2% in 2020 to positive 3.2% in 2021. While global trade strengthened as a result of a rebound in merchandise volumes, the Gambia has realized a sharp increase in imports and the export trade, especially in basic and essential commodities such as rice, cooking oil, cement, and sugar. This is, however, coupled with an increase in commodity prices, which will impact headline inflation as global commodity inflation feeds into domestic retail prices. In addition to the food price hike, the increase in global fuel prices has negatively affected the domestic market. With regards to tourism, the vaccine-driven recovery has aided the easing of travel restrictions and is gradually improving travelers' confidence. Although tourist arrivals projection for 2021 indicated a recovery in the tourism sector, the Gambia may still experience difficulties in meeting pre-pandemic numbers. Rail sector. The 2021 fiscal year was a challenging one for the Gambian economy, although an improvement from what was faced in 2020. The economy is expected to grow by 3.2% in 2021 in comparison to the negative 0.2% growth rate recorded in 2020. The improved growth rate is attributed to a rebound in the economy, especially in the service sector. The agriculture sector is projected to register a growth of 4.5% in 2021, a significant decline from the 11.7% recorded in the preceding year. This is due to late rains resulting to an estimated decline in all agricultural subcomponents except for livestock, which has an estimated growth rate of 4.2% in 2021. In essence, rain-dependent agriculture continues to make the sector highly vulnerable to climate change. The industry sector is expected to register the same growth rate of 9.9% in 2021 as it did in 2020. This is attributed to the lingering impact of COVID-19 pandemic on construction projects, including the OIC works. In a nutshell, mining and quarrying, electricity, water, and construction subsectors are all projected to register a decline in the year 2021. Manufacturing is the only subsector projected to record an improved growth rate of negative 21.2% in 2020 to negative 1.7% in 2021. The service sector, which continues to be the main contributor to GDP, is estimated a growth rate of negative 7.2% in 2020 to a positive 0.2% in 2021. The growth in the sector is mainly driven by modest performance in most of its subcomponents, such as wholesale and retail, information and communication, financial and insurance activities, professional and technical services, education, which are all projected to grow by less than 10% between the year 2020 and 2021. As the most severely affected sector, the impact of COVID-19 is still taking its toll on the sector's growth performance. Accommodation and food services, arts, entertainment and recreation are both projected to increase by 60% as social activities continue to improve from a year ago. Fiscal sector. Revenue and grants for the first 9 months of 2021 fiscal year declined from 15.5 billion Gambian dollars in 2020 to 11.8 billion dollars. The 24% decline between the two periods is mostly attributed to a decline in project grants by 48% and program grants by 73%. Total expenditure decreased by 6% from $16.8 billion in the first 9 months of 2020 to $15.9 billion in the corresponding period of 2021. The decline is attributed to a reduction in capital expenditure by 5% from $4.6 billion to $4.4 billion. As part of efforts for fiscal consolidation, current expenditure declined by 6% from $12.2 billion in the first 9 months of 2020 to $11.5 billion in the corresponding period of 2021. Over the period review, personnel emoluments increased by 11% to $3.3 billion. Interest payments increased by 6% to $2.6 billion, whilst other charges declined by 18% due to a significant decline in COVID-19 related expenditures. The overall fiscal deficit, including grants, increased from $1.3 billion as at end September 2020 to $4.1 billion in the corresponding year of 2021. This is due to decline in total grants over the period. Revenue losses due to exemption decreased significantly by 56% from $2.3 billion in the first 8 months of 2020 to $1.4 billion in the same period of 2021. This significant decline is attributed to the establishment of a tax expenditure committee under the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs as part of revenue administration reform introduced in 2020. The public debt stock amounted to $81.8 billion as at end of the second quarter of 2021 compared to $68.5 billion in the same period of 2020. Of the total debt stock in 2021, domestic debt constitutes 46.6% $0.3 billion, whilst external debt constitutes $35.5 billion. Monetary sector. On the development in the monetary aggregates, broad money showed sustained growth in reflecting an increase in the net domestic assets of the banking sector. This is induced by the impact of the government's fiscal stimulus program and complementary monetary policies measures implemented in 2020 to alleviate the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the economy. As at end June 2021, interest rates have been generally trending down in line with easing of monetary policy stance and liquidity conditions. Broad money grew faster at the end of June 2021 by 27.5% to $56.6 billion relative to the corresponding period a year earlier. This was mainly on account of significant growth in the banking system's net foreign assets. The banking system net foreign assets grew by 48.9% as at end June 2021 from a growth of 27.4% as at end June 2020. The net domestic assets of the banking sector grew at 13.8% to $30.9 billion as at end June 2021 from 10.7% a year earlier. The net domestic assets is among the main sources of liquidity injections into the economy and is associated with the financing of government fiscal deficits, private sector credit, and credit to public enterprises. Headline inflation has risen to 8.2% in July 2021 from 4.8% in July 2020. The acceleration in headline inflation is primarily attributed to the rise in constituency variables. In the domestic foreign exchange market, the Gambian dollar has experienced modest pressure against major trading currencies between June 2020 and June 2021. Over this period, the dollar depreciated against all major trading currencies except the United States dollar. It depreciated against the euro, pound sterling, CFA by 8.2%, 11.1%, 8.1% respectively. However, it appreciated against the US dollar by 0.6%. Remittance volumes in the domestic markets have been on the increase and continue to be the main source of inflow in the domestic forex market. As at end June 2021, remittance recorded $403.6 million United States dollars, a 61.4% increase from total remittance recorded in the same period a year earlier. External sectors. Preliminary balance of payment estimate shows that the current account balance improved from a deficit of $41.1 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2020 to a deficit of $5.6 million US dollars in the same period of 2021. This significant improvement is due to increased remittances. The goods accounts recorded a deficit of $134.4 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2021 from a deficit of $122.4 million US dollars in the same period of 2020. This reflects high importation of goods during the current period compared to a year earlier. In the second quarter of 2021, the imports total $141.5 million US dollars compared to $126.2 million in the same period of 2020. Export revenue increased by $7 million US dollars from $3.7 million over the same review period. The service sector balance improved from a deficit of $10.9 million US dollars in the second quarter of 2020 to a deficit of $6.1 million US dollars in the same period of 2021. This reflects a slow recovery in the tourism as air charter tourist arrivals have increased by 91% from 2020.
Current transfers net increase from $95.9 million in the second quarter of 2020 to $154.3 million in the same period of 2021. Workers' remittance over the review period amounted to $146.3 million compared to $95.9 million in the same period of 2020. The capital and financial account recorded a deficit of $52.9 million in the second quarter of 2021 compared to a deficit of $28.8 million recorded a year earlier. The financial account balance increased to a deficit of $64.8 million from a deficit of $61.2 million, reflecting a decline in direct and other investments. Key sectors, finance and economic affairs. Government intends to promote the establishment of capital markets as a way of mobilizing savings from long-term investments in the economy. This is in response to an increasing demand from government and private sector to finance productive assets that will spur growth. The current options to mobilize savings from investment are through the money markets and direct commercial lending, and these are not the most desirable instruments to finance long-term investments. Consequently, a new capital bill will be introduced before the National Assembly to establish the regulatory authority which is mandated to protect investors as well as maintain a fair, efficient, and transparent market. In 2018 and 2019, the government of the Gambia conducted audits of state-owned enterprises. The findings of this study reveals weaknesses in the internal control environment, weak governance systems, and lack of proper financial statements. These issues undermine the transparency, accountability, financial and operational performance of the state-owned enterprise. Based on this findings, the Ministry of Finance felt obliged to enhance our oversight state-owned enterprises' responsibility and assist the SOEs to improve their financial and operational performance. Achieving this would require a sound SOE legal framework that strengthens financial oversight, support SOE's transparency, reporting, and disclosure whilst leveling the playing field between SOEs and private sectors. For these reasons, the Ministry will present before this National Assembly a state-owned enterprise bill that seeks to establish a state-owned enterprise commission, which will in turn make provisions for efficient and effective governance of SOEs and monitor their performances. The demand for government services has significantly increased, particularly for the provisions of large-scale government projects such as roads and bridges, communication, technology infrastructure, energy, as well as large-scale commercial agriculture. This kind of investment would require heavy private and public capital injection characterized by public-private partnerships, PPPs. PPPs are innovative financing instruments that help to reduce the fiscal burden on government and at the same time provide the infrastructure needed of the country through complementary private capital. To this end, government will submit a public-private enterprise bill that seeks, among others, to establish the institutional arrangements for the government of PPPs in the Gambia, for the governance of PPPs in the Gambia. The bill will also feature provisions related to improving quality, cost, effectiveness, competitiveness, and timely delivery of public infrastructure and services in the Gambia through the involvement of the private sector. With support from the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, government has taken an evaluation of Vision 2020. These findings will help guide the coordination and formulation of a long-term development plan. The new vision will cover the period 2022 to 2050 and will provide a strategic framework for the comprehensive transformation of the country's economy and will also serve as an anchor for medium-term development plans. The ministry, in collaboration with COVID-19 Recovery Secretariat, is also working on the development of a green recovery-focused medium-term development plans to succeed the current NDP. The process of formulating both planning frameworks will be participatory and inclusive. The ministry continues to work towards enhancing government's public financial management functions. The upgraded web-based integrated financial management system, IFMIS, has been rolled out to all sub-treasuries, LGAs, and some embassies. The IFMIS is currently being extended to donor-funded projects and subvented agencies. The government payment process has significantly improved with the implementation of the electronic funds transfer model, which allows payments to be done electronically directly into the beneficiary's account. This has eliminated cash payments and the associated risk. The implementation of the Treasury single account is progressing well. A payment gateway platform to facilitate the automation and improvements of the revenue collection process is being implemented for further support the Treasury single account process. Internal audit has been one of the key pillars of government's PFM reforms. Significant gains have been registered in strengthening internal controls, risk management, and governance processes. Internal audit functions have been rolled out to almost all ministries, and by end 2022, it will be extended to all remaining MDAs. A new internal audit committee has been inaugurated with competent members to continue the work of providing professional guidance to the Directorate in executing their duties. The government of the Gambia is committed to reduce the inequality gap between men and women in accessing and benefiting from national development, equitable growth, and poverty reduction. With support from the IMF, the ministry is working closely with MDAs to implement gender-responsive budgeting that aims to mainstream gender inequality in prioritization and resource allocation. The ministry has formulated a medium-term roadmap for the implementation of gender-responsive budget reforms. In 2022, MDAs will identify gender issues A new internal audit committee has been inaugurated with competent members to continue the work of providing professional guidance to the Directorate in executing their duties. The government of the Gambia is committed to reduce the inequality gap between men and women in accessing and benefiting from national development, equitable growth, and poverty reduction. With support from the IMF, the ministry is working closely with MDAs to implement gender-responsive budgeting that aims to mainstream gender inequality in prioritization and resource allocation. The ministry has formulated a medium-term roadmap for the implementation of gender-responsive budget reforms. In 2022, MDAs will identify gender issues
Star GSM has new arrivals of home appliances with 2 years warranty and a promotion on 2-way gas cooker, gas or electric at a cost of $10,000, which used to be $17,000, and a deeper freezer $10,000, which used to be $15,000. Stand fans rechargeable and at least for 8 hours. Different stand freezers deep freezers from 140 to 400 liters, blenders, original flat screens from 32 inches to 65 inches. At Star GSM, their appliances are original, durable, modern, and energy-saving. Star GSM also have sports shoes, Timberland, and Scandals. Original perfumes from India, Churai and Andy Churai from Dubai. Star GSM offer its customers 25% discount on all smartphones, simple phones and HD receivers for national security forces, police, paramilitary,
areas of policy and institutional reforms, it is worth mentioning that this support to the LGAs is being managed highly by our reputable GAMWORKS agencies. Both the African Development Bank and the French development agencies are supporting the government in improving domestic resource mobilization efforts and enhancing the revenue authority capacity for revenue generation. With support from the African Development Bank, the government is planning to undertake a second PIFA assessment in November 2021. The assessment, which is anchored on the 2016 framework, provides a yardstick for assessing and reporting on the country's PFM strengths and weaknesses. This assessment will cover all MDAs, SOEs, and LGAs and will substantially improve performance of the country's PFM systems. Plans are at advanced stage to review and update the Public Finance Act of 2014 and Financial Regulation 2016. This is aimed at amending the existing laws and developing a manual that takes into consideration the fundamental principles and best practices of PFM. The new legislation will address the gaps, overlaps, and inconsistencies in the public finance legislation. Training of staff at various MDAs to improve the public sector understanding of the management and use of public funds will also be conducted. The Ministry, with assistance from the European Union under the 11th European Development Fund, continues to work on improving gender inclusiveness and empowerment, strengthen and institutionalize credible electoral process, reinforce social security sector reforms, and generally improve the PFM processes and procedures. To ensure effective aid management, the Gambia Aid Policy 2015 to 2020, coupled with the National Development Plan and the Development Finance Assessment, DFA 2018, provides a guide to how aid to the Gambia should be provided and managed. The Ministry is currently working on drafting a new aid policy to ensure alignment of aid resources and also support government's development plan objectives through effective resource mobilization. The Gambia Strategic Review Board was created to enhance efficiency of public investment. The board is responsible for the appraisal and approval of all programs and projects and to ensure their compliance and alignment to the national development strategies and priorities action plan. During the course of this year, the board, with the use of the project appraisal guidelines, was able to appraise numerous projects in the areas of health and education. As one of the policy actions under the Sustainable Development Finance Policies, SDFP, and the public investment programs will be implemented in 2022. The rationale for the PIP initiative is to ensure that macroeconomic sector strategies are translated into programs and projects. This is a 5-year medium-term investment resource envelope that will be available to Government of the Gambia during the period 2022 to 2026 for the implementation of the prioritized projects and programs of the MDAs. The overarching objective of the PIP is to further strengthen public investment management that outlines the priority programs and projects of the government. It is also expected to address the challenging debt situation and the required fiscal space for the achievement of our national development plan. Productive sectors, agriculture and natural resources. The Ministry of Agriculture has developed a national agriculture extension policy to promote sustainable agricultural production, value chain development, strengthen the human and institutional capacity of extension service providers and the governance of extension systems. The ministry is also working with farmers to develop their capacity in new farming techniques and approaches to reduce drudgery and boost production and productivity. The department has also been sensitizing on farmers on climate change mitigation and coping strategies through the adoption of climate-smart agriculture. In the agriculture sector, the Gambia's bilateral relations with several Asian countries continues to thrive. Japan has donated $125 million worth of rice, including 50 tractors and farming accessories, and the two countries will deepen cooperation in the areas such as agriculture, health, and technology. And an additional 600 metric tons of fertilizer and 50 metric tons of groundnuts were also provided to the farming community through the support of the Japanese government. The government of the People's Republic of China, through their embassy, has supported the Ministry of Agriculture in highly significant measures. Within this framework of our bilateral cooperation, the Chinese government has supported the Gambia with power tillers, mini threshers, irrigation pumps, rice mills, and 10 metric tons of urea fertilizers, fisheries, and water resources. Like all other sectors, the fisheries sector has been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. A number of land-based fishing processors and export companies have been closed due to low fishing and processing activities, high cost of preservation, and low exports of fish products. In addition to the pandemic, the sector continues to face challenges that are hindering its development. This includes limited technology on the production of good quality of fingerlings for the coastal and offshore aquaculture, illegal and unregulated fishing, and the lack of Gambian-owned industrial fishing vessels. In early 2021, the Fisheries Monitoring Center of the Department was equipped with a vessel monitoring system through funding from the EU-Gambia Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Program. The VMS will help with the monitoring of fishing activities, particularly of industrial fishing vessels operating in Gambian waters, and thus curb illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. The fisheries sector is part of the Gambia's pilot project implementation by GAMWORKS through funding from the ECOWAS Stabilization Fund. The project has constructed a fish smoking oven for women at the Brookfoot Community Fisheries Center, with similar structures to be constructed in other fishing landing sites. The project is also supporting aquaculture development with youth organizations in URR through the provision of mini grants. The Department of Water Resources is implementing a climate-smart rural water supply and sanitation development project through funding from the African Development Bank. The project will construct 144 solar-powered pipe water supplies that will provide safe drinking waters to over 400,000 rural settlers. Through support from the Japanese grant, additional solar-powered pipe water supplies are to be constructed in 2022 to benefit 80,000 people in our rural communities. Information, communication, and infrastructure. In order to ensure high-speed internet access for all citizens, the broadband policy and strategy strategy 2020 to 2024 has been formulated to help ensure last-mile access for affordable and quality ICT services in the Gambia. The attainment of these objectives will provide a robust base for government to fully roll out programs and projects aimed at digitally transforming the country's economy. The ministry will prioritize the upgrade of the e-government data center to effectively manage national data system, enhance public service delivery, and expansion of communication channels that promote participatory governance. The ministry is currently spearheading endeavors for the establishment of a technology hub at the University of Gambia and regional information and innovative hubs across the country. These These efforts will help with promoting economic growth, job creation, human development, and poverty reduction. The establishment of tech hubs is in line with the NDP priorities of spurring research and development in ICT for employment and employability, and as well as for the upscaling of productivity across sectors through the exploitation of ICT. With the successful deployment of Google Plus codes in Banjul and Kanifing municipality by the ministry in partnership with Google LLC, the next phase of implementation in 2022 will expand this initiative to other regions. This initiative has positive implications for ensuring digital inclusiveness. To avert the unfortunate internet shutdown experienced on 3 occasions this year, the government is working with stakeholders in a bid to land an additional submarine cable that will complement the ACE cable and crucially serve as a reliable backup capacity. By the same token, some of the strategic interventions for the 2022 will be anchored on improving cyber security coordination. This will be achieved through a number of initiatives, including the establishment of a national cybersecurity coordination committee, adopting a critical information infrastructure protection policy and regulatory framework, and raising awareness on cybersecurity issues across all sectors. Tourism and culture. Global tourism suffered its worst year on record in 2020, with global international travels dropping by 74% according to the World Tourism Organization. In the Gambia, tourism sector was the most affected, with tourist arrivals numbers by air in 2020 declining by 62% to 89,232. The target to reach 350,000 in 2021 is likely to be a daunting task, as the world has only recently begun international travels. With the reopening of the tourism sector for the upcoming tourist season, the Gambia Tourism Board has developed rigorous health and safety protocols and guidelines. Furthermore, the Tourism Board is in collaboration with the National Roads Authority has finalized the bidding process for the construction of 3 strip roads within the tourism development area leading to major hotels. The board has also completed the mapping of a TDA demarcation from Koto to Katong, which will guide the board on the available land, type of land development needed, and the level of encouragement within the TDA. Similarly, the arts and culture sector has continued to make tremendous growth despite the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. This sector has been hard hit by the closure of venues, restrictions in movements, and measures implemented in precaution to protect the population. These challenges, however, have not totally paralyzed the sector. Artists have been at the forefront of the fight against the pandemic through many activities funded by donors such as UNESCO to use the art to create awareness of the pandemic and how to minimize infection rates and enhance acceptance of the vaccines. The UNESCO-ECOWAS partnership has supported the National Council for Art and Culture to engage Gambian writers, actors, filmmakers, dancers to take part in COVID-19 advocacy campaign. The NCAC has signed an agreement with Official Mobile Company, who have pledged to refurbish the Gambia National Museum in Banjul in the coming year. The refurbishment will give a new and completely revamped look to our National Museum. This means there will be more exhibition space, space for performance, and office space for the staff. The project will no doubt boost our tourism attraction and attract more visitors to the National Museum. The rehabilitation of the Kerbach Stone Cycles, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nyanija, has been completed, while the dilapidated museum structures and perimeters fence refurbished and ready to receive paying visitors. Other refurbishment done in the extension of includes the extension of electricity to Jufure Albreda sites and Fort Bolen in Bara, which are also World Heritage Sites. In 2022, with the support of the government, more heritage sites will be refurbished and value added. This includes the Mongo Park Memorial Obelisk and the Berending Sacred Korkal Pool. The rural communities located in these areas are expected to benefit immensely from the tourist visitations. The Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute has provided skilled training in various hospitality disciplines for more than 5,000 young Gambians, both from and within and outside the country. This includes rural outreach programs carried out in annexes in Farafenye and Janjanpure. Capacity development is increasingly becoming a priority of the Institute. Through government and the development partner support, the Institute is better positioned as a sub-regional center of reference in tourism and hospitality education, attracting students from within the sub-region and beyond. In a bid to decentralize tourism and to enhance tourism activities nationwide, a program on tourism and hospitality training in rural Gambia has been extended to Basse and Bintang in partnership with the Youth Enterprise Project. Over 120 young Gambians have been enrolled in the scheme that will build capacity and create employment opportunities. Giving tourism roles as a catalyst for inclusive economic growth and development, which aligns with our overarching goal of the National Development Plan, the Ministry seeks to mobilize resources to promote inclusive, resilient, and culture-centered tourism for sustainable growth. In partnership with the World Bank, the Ministry has developed a public-private dialogue mechanism which will help deepen coordination, facilitate stakeholders' engagement in the sector, and prioritize the sequencing of COVID-19 recovery actions. The PPD mechanism will determine a series of top priorities for tourism recovery, including diversifying source markets, developing and enhancing tourism products, increasing and improving marketing, and building core capacities. As a result of these recent engagements with the World Bank and pursuant to the interests of the government of the Gambia to underpin tourism development as a contributor to the recovery efforts, employment generation and economic growth, the government has requested for financing to support the tourism recovery efforts. This financing will implement the recommendations from the PPD mechanism, strengthen the institutional capacity of the tourism value chain, improve the tourism enabling environment, increase the participation and value added of tourism-related MSMEs, and diversify the tourism products offered of the country. Trade, industry, regional integration, and employment. Through the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, and Employment, the government of the Gambia is strengthening its collaboration with trading partners to support trade, integration, and employment. As part of these efforts, at a bilateral level, Motai signed trade and transit cooperation agreement with Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and Guinea-Conakry. A joint trade committee will be established to monitor the implementation of this agreement. At the continental level, the Gambia continues to be fully committed to Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, and the government is working with stakeholders to ensure that the Gambia benefits from this agreement. The Ministry has completed works on the country's tariff schedule for both trade in goods and trade in services, and is currently engaging with other state parties to finalize negotiations on the outstanding issues. It is hoped that the AFTA will enhance market access and make the Gambia access the 1.2 billion continental market. With support of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the Ministry has developed a national African Free Trade Continental with the implementation strategy identifying priority actions that will be undertaken by government over 10 years period to effectively leverage the potential benefits of the AFTA. On micro and small medium-sized enterprises development, the ministry supported capacity building and policy reform using Empretech model, particularly for youth and women. The ministry provided training in entrepreneurship and revenue generation skill to enhance access to local and international markets. Under the Youth Empowerment Project, over 25 million was disbursed to young entrepreneurs through small business grants. In addition, 255 individuals have benefited from the financial emergency program to ensure that their business survival during the coronavirus pandemic. The She Trade Gambia project launched a mini grant scheme for qualified companies to improve their access to finance and expand the capacity of their businesses. The ministry through the project has successfully linked major importers of onions to local producers and communities to source onions locally. To strengthen the country's quality infrastructure, a draft legal metrology bill has been developed for submission to the National Assembly. The bill will strengthen the current Weights and Measures Act, especially on charges and penalties in order to deter offenders. During the course of the year, the Weights and Measures Bureau has been able to verify over 3,500 commercial weighing and measuring devices throughout the country. The Bureau also verifies the accuracy of fuel dispensers at all petrol stations across the country. Verification of measuring instruments serves as a consumer protection mechanism to protect both businesses and consumers from unfair trade practices through the use of the measuring devices. Regarding employment creation and the strengthening of the labor administration, the ministry has revised the Labor Act 2010 and the Injuries Compensation and Factory Act. This bill shall be submitted to the National Assembly for enactment. The Ministry of Trade, as part of the implementation of the revised employment policy 2020 to 2025, has established an employment service center at the Department of Labor to facilitate the linkage between job seekers and employers, and plans are underway to create regional job centers in 2022. Works, construction, and infrastructure. On the rural roads expansion program, Lot 1, which includes the following roads: Sabah, Sotoko, Bambali, Sarakunda, Ngen Sanjal, with a total length of approximately 38 kilometers, is close to 40% complete. Similarly, Lot 2 of the road constructions at Kawur, Jimbala, Kawur, Kir Chandu, Kir Jibi, Nyanga Bantang is also underway. The Nyomi Hakalang road network, which stretches 85 kilometers, is also progressing, with close to 30% of the work having completed as at end August 2021. In July 2021, the Kiang West project, a total of 80 kilometers road, was launched. The project will include 2 carriage highways and provision of sidewalks, accessibility for the physically challenged, and drainage facilities. As part of the OIC road projects for the upcoming conference, the procurement and contracting process for the 24 kilometers Battle Hardened Highway and adjoining 50-kilometer roads is completed. Works are expected to be completed within a period of 16 months. Contracts have been signed through funding from the National Fuel Level for the maintenance of roads in the villages of Bambakolo, Kudang, Kombo Coastal Highway, the construction of Soma Mansakonko Roads, Pakalinding Mansakonko Farato, Jambur, Tujareng, Kunkujang Mariama, and Kerawan Nyawara. These roads have been subjected to serious depression, causing accidents and adding traffic congestions. The new electronic tolling facilities at the Senegambia Bridge will be operational by the end of this year. The National Roads Authority is currently proceeding with the procurement of a contractor for the fencing of the toll and installation of sanitary facilities for security. Following the design and supervision of the Trans-Gambia feeder roads and the Farafenye and Soma markets, the markets were completed and handed over to the respective councils. The Banjul City Council Rehabilitation Project continues to make steady progress in the constructions of the concrete and road pavement, with 86% of the total length of the streets covered and 31% of the additional works completed. Works on the footpath, sewage and drainage are also steadily progressing. The People's Republic of China will be constructing under the URR Roads and Bridges project and will be providing lighting and facilities for the Basse-Fatoto roads. In 2021, the ferry services at the Banjul Barra crossing has improved as a result of the implementation of additional operating measures and the installation of new landing platforms at both Banjul and Barra. The improved services has enabled the GPF and ferries to extend the daily operating times and increase the maximum allowable tonnage of 60 tons. This has accommodated crossing of interstate and transit vehicles on the same route. Following the infrastructure improvements at Banjul International Airport, on the rehabilitation of the passenger terminal building are completed, and building is now equipped to handle up to 500 passengers in peak hour. This development is in line with government's aim to increase operational capacity and efficiencies at the airport in line with the national development plans. Systems including self-service kiosks, among others, will be introduced in the terminal to enhance service delivery in accordance with international standards and best practice. Petroleum and energy. The Ministry of Petroleum and Energy continues to pursue the utilization of petroleum, energy and mineral resources as a stimulus for economic growth, employment and sustainable development. In particular, government seeks to promote the diversification of energy sources, particularly the use of renewable energy for increased access to sustainable and affordable energies. These efforts are supported by initiatives to implement green mini-grids to supply electricity to off-grid rural communities, encouraging the use of energy efficiency appliances and promoting the use of alternative energy. Following the successful stabilization of A2 and A5 license operated by FAR Petronas, plants are underway at an advanced stage for drilling another offshore well by the end of 2021. Due to the global policy shift on carbon emissions, British Petroleum has exited the A1 license. With the block now available for licensing, the ministry developed a strategy to implement the market, to immediately market and initiate a new licensing round for the block. Electricity and water generation. The National Water and Electricity Company has registered improvements in their production capacity of electricity, with its available generation capacity meeting the peak load demand in the Greater Banjul area. The partnership with Senelec has enabled the increased supply of electricity to the North Bank and part of LRR and CRR. This partnership is being extended to the Basse subsystem to meet the growing demands in the area. As part of the final phase of the rural electrification expansion project, NAWEC has linked Basse and Bansang to reduce the operative costs and improve the flexibility of operations. In June 2021, the foundation stone for the Greater Banjul Area Transmission Distribution Modernization Project was laid. The project will address the current power shortage problem by significantly improving the power supply access in the Greater Banjul area. With support from the World Bank, European Union, and European Investment Bank, the Gambia is poised to become the first country in the world to ensure that all of its 1,100 rural schools and health centers will benefit from a reliable energy supply using solar and battery technology. This will happen through a 20 megawatt solar energy and 400 kilometers distribution project, as well as installation of PV off-grid systems to transform energy access and reduce the cost. Once operational, this will increase energy supply considerably and transform electricity access in rural communities through the construction of a new photovoltaic plant at Jambur. This project will increase access to energy, ensure that education and health services benefit from reliable power, and help address the current power shortages in the country. Given the company's current challenges in transmission and distribution, efforts are underway to upgrade the Birkama to Kotu transmission line and will be fitted with a modern supervisory control and data acquisition system. As part of government reforms for SOEs, NAVEC is going through an organizational restructuring aimed at enhancing performance and efficiency in its operations. Social sectors, basic education. A significant surge in enrollment has been registered at all levels, with number of trained and qualified teachers also increased. Over 1,000 classrooms and toilets are constructed in madrasas and conventional schools ready for use during the 2021-2022 academic year. The sector's development partners, notably UNICEF, World Food Program, World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, Badia, OFIT, MRC Holland, the Kuwait, the Fund, AIB, and EU continues to support the education sector to make quality education affordable and accessible to all in the Gambia. When the COVID-19 pandemic forced the closure of schools for 6 months during the 2021 academic year, it was realized that there was no specific timeline for the complete eradication of COVID-19, and that the continuous closure of schools was detrimental for the students' cognitive and socio-emotional development. As a result, a strategic framework to guide the process of reopening schools was developed. Schools were fumigated and personal protective equipment such as face masks, hand sanitizers, forehead thermometers were supplied to all schools to ensure that students are protected from possible infection. Additionally, class sizes were reduced and divided into shifts, with teachers assuming double shifts to ensure physical distancing among the students. The school's flexible calendar year has been greatly improved across all regions to meet the stipulated 880 instructional hours and recover part of the 252 contact hours that were lost last year when the schools were closed due to the surge of COVID-19. Higher education. In addressing access to higher education, the ministry continues its efforts with the donors of the University of the Gambia's Faraba Banta campus for the completion of the first phase of the project. This phase, which consists of 5 faculties, is expected to be completed in early 2022. Government has received commitment for the additional financing of the second phase of the project, which comprises of the remaining facilities. The ministry is finalizing arrangements for the completion and operationalization of 2 new technical. This supported the ministry's efforts towards achieving the required health worker density threshold. However, high attrition rates of skilled health workers remain a major challenge. Significant progress has been registered in the process of developing a national health research policy to facilitate the promotion, coordination, and conduct of research for evidence-based decision-making to improve health outcomes, and that meets the development needs of our population. The health sector is also at an advanced stage to introduce the famous National Health Insurance Scheme for the first time in the history of the country. The scheme will serve as a sustainable health financing mechanism in the country. It is expected to improve access to safe and quality health care services, affordable medication, and serve as a social safety net for the poor and vulnerable. To this end, a bill to establish the NHIS authority has been tabled before the National Assembly and has gone through the first and second reading. We're hoping that before the end of the year, it will be ratified by the National Assembly. Women and Children's Affairs. The ministry will continue to work with UNFPA and the Ministry of Health to roll out the Kabilo Bama initiative currently operating in LRR. The aim of the initiative is to improve clinic attendance by women and children as enhanced income of women and scale enterprises. Over 96 women groups across the country have benefited and more than 2,000 women trained on entrepreneurship and business management skills, whilst a total of $7.4 million was disbursed as a soft loan. With support from the AFDB and UN agencies in the Gambia, the Women Act 2010, Sexual Offense Act 2013, Domestic Violence Act 2013, and the Children's Act from 2005 are currently being reviewed. For effective implementation of these policies and legislative frameworks, the Ministry has established the Shelter for Victims, Domestic Violence at Backwater, with support from the UNFPA. The Gender-Based Violence Helpline 1313 and the Children's Helpline 199 are both fully functional and established and operational for the reporting of cases. With support from the UNFPA, a facility at the Shelter for Children was refurbished and currently serving as a Women and Girls Empowerment Center for temporary accommodation and counseling of victims of gender-based violence. With support from UNFPA, a girls' center for the production of sanitary towels in Basse is being established, as well as Fistula Rehabilitation Center in LRR, funded by ECOWAS Gender Development Center. The ministry has also facilitated the integration of 159 children from Senegal and reunited them with their families. In partnership with Child Protection Alliance, 30 child protection actors were trained on advocacy for increased investment on children. As part of the government's response to negative economic effects resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, and with assistance from the National Nutrition Agency, put in place a mechanism to assist over 78,000 households in 30 of the poorest districts in the Gambia. This was implemented through a 4-month cash transfer program, the NAFA Quick. This support helped families meet their basic needs during the lean season, which was made worse by the economic hardship caused by the COVID-19 crisis. Youth and Sports. The government, through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, continues to prioritize youth empowerment and sports development. This is evident in the introduction of the Sports Development Fund and Youth Enterprise Revolving Loan Scheme to support the sector's activities. The National Enterprise Development Initiative, with funding from GIZ, has trained close to 200 young youth and women in the agro-entrepreneurial, horticultural, and food processing in LLR. Through the ongoing rehabilitation of the Independence Stadium, it is hoped that once completed, the stadium will be of international standards and qualify to host international football matches. The Gambia participated in the Tokyo, Japan Games with new records established. The Paralympic Committee recently returned from Tunisia and England, where they won gold, silver, and bronze medals in various games. The Gambia national football team has for the first time qualified to the AFCON 2022. The National Sports Council plans to organize a local youth summer camps, refurbish sporting facilities, and send athletes to high-performance training centers abroad, and to compete in more international competitions. The National Youth Council has rehabilitated youth centers across the country, improving their access to skill training and livelihood development initiatives, thus encouraging the youth that it is possible to make it in the Gambia. With support from partners, the NYC has organized a number of capacity assessment and training for youth and migration returnees, and also facilitated access to financing. Lands and regional government. The Department of Lands currently runs its activities using non-digital methods. This has caused slow service deliveries, including difficulties in tracing out all files, maintaining of all maps. As such, the department has started the process of digitizing maps. In addition to the above, the government is working towards having a cadastral survey and registration of legal rights. This system will give a true and exact description of legal rights related at any moment. With the cadastral maps in place, issue of land disputes will be extensively reduced, and it provides the means to accurate identification. The local climate adaptive living project funded by the United Nations Development Fund, the United Nations Capital Development Fund, is partnering with the Department of Community Development to support the needed capacities at all levels in implementing the local mechanism. The project aims to strengthen ward development committees and village development committees in order to support activities implementation and increase participation in beneficiary communities. It will also identify village development action plans, implement community projects, skill development, and employment. Having assessed the value service offered by village and community heads to local communities, particularly in their efforts to maintain social cohesion and traditional roles, the government has deemed it appropriate to provide monthly salaries to alcalos and sheriffs. In this regard, a budgetary provision has been made in the 2022 budget to meet this commitment. Data and statistics. The Gambia Bureau of Statistics has continued with its mandate, routine data collection, processing, analysis, and dissemination. The Demographic and Health Survey conducted in 2020 was launched in May 2021. The report provides critical indicators in tracking progress on a wide range of indicators in the area of population, health, and nutrition. Data collection for the integrated household survey was completed in early 2021, and a report will be produced by the end of this year. The IHS provides valuable information in poverty dynamics and vulnerability status of households and individuals, as well as information on other socio-economic variables of the household members. The Gambia Social Registry is a consolidated data containing key information about current and potential beneficiaries of social protection programs. This exercise has so far been completed in 30 districts. The field data collection for the remaining 6 districts will be completed and included in the social register by the end of the year. With support from the UNDP, GBOS has conducted the Access to Justice Survey, which provides information on the impact of a judicial delivery system in the Gambia. In 2022, the Bureau plans to embark on a development and compilation of quarterly GDP for the first time in the Gambia. This exercise began in March 2021, and the preliminary estimate is expected to be published by the first quarter of 2022. The objective of this exercise is to provide a comprehensive assessment on the performance of the Gambia's economy on a short-term basis, as well as establish comparability of economic statistics across the sub-region. Also in 2022, The Bureau plans to conduct preparatory activities for the 2023 population and housing census. This will include the mapping of the country for the demarcation and rebasing of the Consumer Price Index from January 2019 to 2021. Justice. In 2021, the National Assembly passed 10 legislative bills, including those which addresses the protection of women and child rights. As part of plans for 2022, the government intends to invest in more ICT infrastructure to introduce online applications for intellectual property rights, the registration of deeds and marriage. Benefits of these measures include the reduction of costs associated with starting a business and a competitive edge within the sub-region. Interior. On prison reforms, the new Prisons Act has already been validated. The Act will guide the reforms of operations and infrastructure of the prisons across the country, and ensure that the human rights of the prisoners are respected. An initiative to help prison inmates with the development of income-generating skills before their release is underway. This will help facilitate their reintegration into society and promote their employability after release, thereby reducing the likelihood of reoffending. It is evident that the trend of drug abuse is consistently on the increase, resulting in many of our youths experiencing mental illness that are drug-induced. To address this, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency intends to implement a rehabilitation program for victims of drug abuse. This strategic move will trigger a national shift from approaching drug abuse as a criminal justice issue to a public health issue. The Gambia Police Force has, over the past year, registered laudable achievement in the fight against crimes despite resource constraints and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The Zero Crime operation launched early this year has proven effective in combating the increase in criminal activities, as several criminals were arrested, criminals are demolished. Those arrested are going through the due process of the laws. The government is committed to providing the requisite resources to combat all criminal activities. In line with the government's security sector reform agenda, and in a bid to invest in training and capacity building of the officers, the Gambia Police Force, in collaboration with the national and international partners, have conducted training for about 600 police officers in different areas of policing. On the fire and rescue services, the renovation of Tanje, Sanyang, and Gunjur fire and rescue stations have greatly improved service delivery in the areas. Meanwhile, plans are underway for the constructions of staff quarters in Basse, Farafenye, Bara, Bakau, and Banjul. This will also include general renovation of all fire and rescue stations and staff quarters throughout the country, and the construction of a fire and rescue training academy at Mandinari Blade. Environment, climate, and wildlife. To strengthen national resilience and adaptive capacity of communities, the government of the Gambia, through the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and National Resources, have developed and submitted to the UNFCCC the Gambia's 2050 climate change vision for achieving a low-carbon, climate-resilient economy and safe society. To build resilience and adapt to the impact of climate change requires significant financial resources. The ministry has since started the process of mobilizing funding from donors. Using one of the 4 concepts notes identified in the strategic program on climate resilience, a full project proposal was recently developed and validated. The full project proposal has a funding target of $28.9 million and several donor agencies have been approached for possible funding. Following a request by the government of the Gambia to the World Bank to support the country's objective to build urban and coastal resilience against natural disaster, the country has been successfully included in the second phase of the regional West Africa Coastal Area Resilience Project 2, WACA. The regional WACA program provides financial and technical assistance to countries and regional institutions to address coastal resilience using coastal erosion, flooding, and pollution as entry points. Koto has been identified as a possible intervention area. Government, through the National Environment Agency, is working on a waste management bill, which, when enacted, will, together with the existing anti-littering regulations of 2007 and the ban on plastic ban order of 2015, will significantly assist the country in dealing with plastic waste. The European Union is providing funding to NEA to conduct a comprehensive study on waste management to better understand waste management issues in the country. Government, through the Department of Forestry, is promoting participatory forest management programs where local communities undertake agroforestry programs on farmlands and other degraded natural forests. This allows the Forestry Department to supply seedlings for annual tree planting across the country and also give farmers the opportunity to grow desirable plants on their farms, further increasing forest cover. As a country highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, the country has an environmental resilience and development project which aims to stimulate transformational change towards zero hunger, poverty, and carbon emission. In early 2021, the project trained the Jalo Koto Women Garden and post-harvest management processing and constructed an ice plant at Karton. Personnel management. In a bid to create a merit-based system of promotion, training, and development, and to strengthen effective service delivery within the civil service, the Personnel Management Office and the Public Service Commission are working to implement a robust performance management system within the civil service. The effective implementation of the system will form the base for the promotion and training of civil servants. PMO is currently working with stakeholders to conduct some functional reviews on the civil service. This is necessary to streamline and rationalize mandate of the MDS with a view to reducing overlaps and duplication of roles. It will also improve efficiency of coordination of government institutions. A new pension bill is currently before the National Assembly for consideration and enactment. This bill seeks to repeal the 1950 Pension Act and will facilitate enhanced pension for civil servants and a more efficient pension administration. Office of the Ombudsman. The Office of the Ombudsman has conducted visits throughout all the prisons and detention centers in the country. These visits are premised on the need to provide detainees with access to the services of the Ombudsman. The visits also entails looking at conditions and to make recommendations with the objective of ensuring that they are not kept in inhumane or degrading conditions. In line with the Ombudsman's decentralization, plans are underway set out under the National Development Plan. The office is poised to open an office in the Central River region next year to boost the regional efforts of the Ombudsman in providing administrative justice services to rural Gambians. This will no doubt contribute to consolidating the gains registered by our country in the areas of good governance, democracy, and human rights. Foreign affairs. Government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, continues to promote the Gambia's foreign policy objectives at both bilaterals and multilaterals in what is evident is a testimony to the Gambia's return to world stage as a respected member, and thanks to the sterling leadership of His Excellency President Adam Barrow, the country's representative has been identified to serve for the first time as the president of ECOWAS recently. This is in addition to other roles that the Gambia has assumed in the United Nations and the Human Rights Commission and other global bodies. Furthermore, the ministry has continued to foster economic, political, and people-to-people diplomacy relations with the rest of the world and has support to forge significant partnership with the rest of the world, including those related to OIC, agriculture, health, COVID-19 security, food security, and education. In a significant move, the ministry recently launched its maiden website data portal in aid of enhanced support to migrants and the diaspora. In 2022, government will build on these gains by renewing its commitment to multilateralism, global peace, mutual understanding, shared prosperity, respect for national sovereignty, and the rule-based global order. This will be done in tandem with representing the Gambia's interests abroad, while providing effective services to Gambians and the Gambian diaspora abroad. Honorable Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our development partners for always being there for us in times of need during these challenging periods. It is in this regard that I extend special thanks to the IMF, European Union, World Bank, United Nations, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, African Development Bank, ECOWAS, African Development, Africa Union, Islamic Development Bank, United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi Fund, Arab Bank for Economic Development, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Saudi Fund, the State of Kuwait, Kuwaiti Fund, the Republic of France, Germany, Turkey, the People's Republic of China, the Republic of India, South Korea, Qatar, Switzerland, the United States of America, United Kingdom, Australia, Spain, Italy, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Russia, Japan, the Republic of Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and finally the MRC Holland. Revenue administration. To enhance revenue administration, key reforms implemented during the year includes the enhancement of the GAM tax net, which is in its final stage. The enhanced system has been deployed in 7 main offices and will be rolled out to the provincial tax offices. As part of efforts to modernize and automate all revenue administration processes, as well as address challenges with current IT systems, GRA continues to work on the implementation of the Integrated Tax Administration System, ITAX, and Asikuda World System. Medium-term growth outlook. With the country having gone through third wave of COVID-19 outbreak, it is hoped that the rest of the year, along with 2022 fiscal year, will significantly improve the economy. As efforts to increase vaccination rates are intensified across the world, travel restrictions are eased and economies return to normal, it is hoped that the 2021-2022 tourist season will improve the country's economic outlook. Real GDP growth in 2022 is projected at 6.8%, with all sectors of the economy expected to register increased growth rates when compared to the 2021 fiscal year. On the sectoral growth, agriculture sector is estimated to grow at 4.5% in 2021 to 6.3% in 2022. This increase is on account of largest subcomponent of agriculture, crops, and forestry, which are projected to record improved growth rates. The industry sector is projected to grow from 9.9% in 2021 to 11.1% in 2022. Apart from the slight decline of less than 1% in mining and quarrying on all subcomponents, manufacturing, electricity, water, and constructions are projected to register an increase between the two periods being reviewed. As the sector is showing clear signs of rebounding, growth in the service sector is expected to increase from 0.2% in 2021 to 5.4% in 2022. All major subcomponents of the sectors, namely wholesale and retail trade, accommodation and food services, human health, and real estate activities are expected to increase in the coming year. On the fiscal front, domestic revenue in 2022 is projected to increase to $17.6 billion compared to $13.7 billion estimated in 2021. This is a 16% increase, which is equivalent to $4.1 billion. Both tax and non-tax revenue are the sources of the increase, as government is improving of revenue collection and limiting the revenue losses through granting of duty waivers. Total grants projected to increase slightly by 2.3% from $12 billion in 2021 to $12.3 billion in 2022. The slight increase is due to a decline in program grants and support that was received in 2021 for the COVID-19 pandemic would not be forthcoming in the coming year. This was, however, offset by a greater increase in project grants. As part of government efforts for fiscal consolidation, total revenue is expected to increase slightly by less than 2% from $31.8 billion in 2021 to $32.2 billion in 2022. This is due to a significant decline in other current expenditure, as much as COVID-19 related expenditure made in 2021 are not factored in the 2022 budget estimates. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, in these prevailing circumstances, it is worth noting that adversities and opportunities are two sides of the same coin. Indeed, under the stewardship of His Excellency President Adama Barrow, the Gambia has over the years had its fair share of adversities. In fact, COVID-19 is the most recent and lingering adversities we face as a nation. We must remember that prior to this global pandemic, the country has faced a wide range of political, social, economic, and environmental challenges. Yet, through these challenges, the Barrow government continues to open the doors for opportunity and launch much-needed reforms across all sectors of the economy. This includes reforms in our macroeconomic frame, reforms in economic governance, reforms in the way we manage our national resources and develop our human capital. We also undertook reforms in our security sectors while striving to harness the potentials of digitalization, multilateralism, global trade, and data for development. Moreover, to ensure inclusive development, government has over the years adopted innovative financing measures to reduce rural and urban disparities. This is exemplified by the Program for Accelerated Community Development and other numerous infrastructure projects launched by His Excellency the President. These were aimed at not only transforming rural Gambia, but to catalyze economic growth and social development. It is therefore evident that we have come a long way as a country. This 2022 budget is just a testament that we will not only consolidate the significant gains registered in the past, but it reaffirms our commitment to the medium-term framework. The 2022 budget also signals consistency in our policies and once again sends this 2022 budget signals that in the Gambia we are committed to strengthening our productivity, enhance competitiveness, and promote private sector as engine of growth in the country. This budget also signals our commitment to a green and resilient recovery that leaves no one behind. Meanwhile, we also affirm through this 2022 budget that in the Gambia we will leverage digitalization, foster innovation, and leapfrog the Gambia into the next frontier of its development. Furthermore, we also commit to strengthen our human capital stock and sustainably manage our natural resources. Finally, it is the intent of this 2022 budget to signal that in addition to nurturing strong institutions, we will exercise utmost fiscal prudence. Also, we wish to signal in this 2022 budget that it cannot be business as usual and that going forward, national investment will not be for consumption, but rather will be converted into assets. Riding on this positive wave, this August Assembly is invited to note that the Gambia is the only country in the world that has submitted plans that are deemed compatible with the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. Several countries and development partners have expressed interest to partner with the Gambia towards the sustainable journey following the publication of the report of the Global Climate Action Tracker. Honorable Speaker, the Gambia is standing tall. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, for his courageous and supportive leadership stance during this challenging time. I also thank my colleagues in Cabinet and the team of hard-working staff of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. I am equally thankful to this August Assembly and the staff of the National Assembly under the leadership of the Speaker and the Clerk for working tirelessly to approve the 2022 budget estimate. On this note, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for tabling the bill, that is the budget speech. Before I call on any honorable member to second the motion, may I just take the opportunity to recognize the presence of Her Excellency the Vice President, who joined us earlier on during the session. Thank you very much. Now I invite any seconder, please. Yes, Nyanija, honorable member for Nyanija.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill titled the Appropriation Bill 2022 be read a second time. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Honorable members, pursuant to Standing Order Clause 87.4, I've adjourned the debate on the Appropriation Bill 2022 until tomorrow, that's Friday the 29th of October 2021, to allow honorable members to thoroughly peruse the bill. But before doing so, I wish to thank the Honorable Minister for Finance and Economic Affairs for his cooperation and tremendous effort during the consideration of the estimates and for tabling the 2022 appropriation bill as required of him by the Constitution of 1997. The Honorable Minister did set out government's fiscal and economic development programs for the fiscal year 2022. Equally, I wish to use this opportunity on behalf of both sides of the Assembly and indeed on my own behalf to express our appreciation and thanks to our distinguished guests and invitees for gracing this very important sitting of the National Assembly, and in particular, Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Honorable Cabinet Ministers, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, permanent secretaries and head of institutions, senior government officials herein present, staff of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, service chiefs, religious leaders herein present, members of the press, and all other invited guests and the general public. And on that note, I now put the question, be it resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned till Friday, the 29th of October, 2021 at 10 a.m. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. The ayes have it. The Assembly now stands adjourned till Friday, the 29th of October, 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt for the debate and consideration of the Appropriation Bill 2022. And I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
That was the end of the 2022 appropriation bill presentation by the Finance Minister and Economic Minister of the Gambia, Honorable Mambure Njai, here at the National Assembly chambers. As we know, this event is a constitutional requirement empowered by the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia and the Public Finance Act of 2004 for the President to instruct the Finance Minister to present estimates of the budget of the following year to the National Assembly for recommendation and consideration for approval and consideration. Already the minister have already presented the budget estimates of the following year, which is the year 2022, and according to figures given by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, the domestic tax projected for 2022, the year 2022, is 17.6 billion. The project total grants, which is 12.3 billion, and total grants, which is 32.2 billion dollars. According to the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, the 2021 finance budget was impacted by the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected countries globally, and the Gambia is not an exception. And when it comes to the Gambia, the tourism industry has been seriously affected with regards to the pandemic. So this is the current stance here at the National Assembly of the Gambia, and we are showing you live images here. And joining us is Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Jammeh. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Today is part of the budget process. Annually, the Minister of Finance will lay the estimates before the National Assembly of the Gambia. After the estimates are laid and approved, then a day will be assigned officially to lay the appropriation bill, which is commonly known as the budget speech. During this budget speech, the Minister of Finance will give comparative figures of the year that has passed, including government policies, with the upcoming year, this time being a comparison between what transpired in 2020 and what is expected in 2022. Basically, that's why we are here. This year, it is projected that the appropriation bill would be a total of $23 billion. This is not the whole total for the budget, but this indicates how much government, the Gambian money, the GLF, would be. But this would exclude loans and other grants which are not budget support.
So finally, what would be your final take on the appropriation bill?
That would be known after the debate. It's scheduled for tomorrow and the day after. During those sessions, members will have the opportunity to go through, because as you know, he had read a long speech, and we are yet to lay our hands on that. So today and tomorrow, we will have to go through that speech and offer ourselves to criticize or support where it is necessary.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's it. We are on live at the National Assembly, showing you all the important details that matter. And here is another honorable member of the National Assembly, who is not a person but Sekuba of Busumba constituency. What's your take on the appropriation bill today?
My take, the constitutional mandate of the minister and the government has been met, because it is the constitution that demands before 30 days of end of every year, the minister through the government needs to lay the budget appropriation to the parliament. So it has been done earlier, because we have, in November, December we'll have elections, so we want to do it earlier. But generally, I am very much impressed with the statement, because the minister has indicated that Gambia is doing progressively better in the international world. That means what we are doing internally, the international organizations are happy. That even gives Gambia more ample space to go for more international funding, because Gambia is a developing country, we need to depend on that. But what type of international funding that we're going to go for? With the intention that we want to minimize the debt burden. So I've seen from the report that the government has used a very intelligent financial mechanism to reduce the debt burden, to go in for more grants and assistance from government rather than loans, because loans accumulate debt service on the country. If you look at it, about 5 billion is going to be paid to as debt service in the budget, which are accumulative debts we inherited. So it is the responsibility of this government to see how best to minimize that. So in order for them to minimize that, they need to know what type of money are they going to go for. So they prefer this year to go for internal revolving of the money within the country rather than outside. If it is going to be from outside, maybe it's going to be on grant and assistance from government. So obviously, precisely, I'm very much happy, and it has also increased some development, because they have reduced the deficit almost about 50% compared to last year. Because last year was almost about 6 billion as deficit. This year is about 2.5 billion as a deficit. So that indicates that they want to try to improve their way of spending money. But in that, I have also gone through the budget and realized that more of the development aspect is being increased a little bit than the recurrent, which is more appreciated, because development is what the people in the grassroots feel or realize that development is going on in the country. So if you look at go to the Ministry of Health, almost Ministry of Health has been increased about almost 40% compared to last year, and then that increment is based on medical equipment and drug services in the hospital, because this is what many are complaining, that Gambian hospitals don't have materials, they don't have medicines. So government this year has increased about 40% compared to last year, and we also make sure to direct the money to be used on drug related services in the hospitals. So if you come to the Ministry of Local Governments and Land, you know that the alcalos are also doing very good in the communities for years, centuries. They have never been paid anything. So that also causes problems, because if you want to do land transfer, the alcalos will charge you an exorbitant money on your own property, because they are not paid. So now the government is saying now to alleviate that burden on the people that owns the property in the communities. Now they are going to give allowance to the alcalo. So those burden on the people can be reduced. So each alcalo is going to be paid nothing less than $3,000 as a start, which is also very good because it's also going to help them. If you come to youth and sport, it has been increased a little bit. If you come to interior, it has been increased because we are going towards election. But if you come to education, which is more key, has been increased almost about 50%. No, education normally goes 2 billion. Then this year it got about more than 3 billion from the budget is going to allocated to education. So obviously I'm very much happy. If I look at the budget, I've seen so many improvements which are my concern because it's the youth aspect, the education, the health, and the security.
Which one may say is all geared towards economic recovery.
The economic recovery has a broadened dimension. If all the sectors, the social sectors are productive, they will be able to recover the economy. Because the education needs to be qualitative, things need to be, health needs to be provided. Gambia needs to be steady. So if you come to transport also, we know that Gambia is being congested at one side, that's the coastal area. So infrastructure development is needed in this part of the country. So government has now increased the budget of Ministry of Works to to undertake more infrastructural development within the country, which I believe if this all been done, the social sector of the country will be productive. Then in that production, then the economy will also go. Every individual will be able to realize your potentials in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the Honorable Speaker for Busumbala constituency. And now joining me is my co-host, Mr. Bojang. Mr. Bojang, isemina fono mole mandika kamoto.
Kabake, thank you very much. Mbadi ngono katandara ko albira moy kan anin jibero la fanna Eyeafrica TV da malam dami yalan ko bimbale National Assembly dami yalan ko Minister of Finance minketa Honorable Mambre Njaiti tumo mina nata nang pour ka bancaire ke na fankola bundala mi yalan ko Gambia bebe wole koto because niaji be Minister of Finance ateo palaso mi anko amantara place ndindo bar fankola bundato atebe wolto fankola bunda wala ka Gambia samba fankola bunda atelon Gambia loram bulote abutu même ko rolne say ko samba min kala honorable Khalifa Sallah fele butung lafta diamoni ka kana soda mande da bare Khalifa Sallah fele sa dismo right now tante mbala fla nay 1-on-1 so malam fo butung abe kana sonia la bam bare même mo wolone de ko kodol foja Ousmane kodo foja mi an ko asiata min tara fo la dol bije biliaro min tara fo biliar tang ani worowula ani million woro nyongo la do fana min tara fo biliar tang ani fula min tara fo million saba bar niya be jibe ngamira wolon 32.2 billion butong 32.2 billion dalasi Ousmane ning ko mata bakal naka because niaje Minister of finance atakata dal dami alon ko banko be jikina tella oto ngamira ko nin ko do nyanta kala daram bulol minna abakel taram bur kendo dam malati banko kan abe mun do ka banko nin ka samanya Ousmane development wala fanala asiatal bare ngalon ko ay man sakunda la fanala bika be ko no bare ko dalle to mo dami alon ko ikum mata bakalen ko lem to ngi kafunyo kan pour man sakunda fana sa ko no ala agendati bare man sakunda fanala ko do muta ko min nin ko di bala muta ke muri ke ke lato inte kala ko mo de men ko kumar Ousmane ite amere ko nim biliari tan saba anim fula million keme fula ainta duna fanna mina mane kana fanna de
so woleng rek akumata bake kon ya fo nyame rek akodo siata bari aketa kodo te miyalon ko fana like nyinang government or strategy may use woleng approach ko like ebe na fenkol na loan sol ibe talala nyame so wala na this year like if focused grand sol le kan so ibaje la fana nying grand sol iba ye grand ye mansa kunda la dépense nyang like department sol ya la fale pour ka je ko like ibe satira development o so iba sambala no nyame
ni ngamira time do tambira non just like 2020 ma fon la ngamira they are talking about is it 60 billion yeah bar nyina ngamen nang anatan for around 32 billion ngamen talal ba katon la kadi so usuma kam da ko ni ya jibe ko ni banyam den dena kumata ba kan na sambanya na finance minister be da kan at this moment right now tare yemin fo janto tanting butu ngame tumando ni ala sunda o taram bulo inta so ne ala bar mem ko beti de ka ko Eyeafrica album follow up la at this moment right now jam national assembly da malti be tumando be kiskisiro kala ka jibe nim biliar tan sabanim fula million keme fula ayenta na fanna mina fa ajarta ka dungol to bang fa man jar ka dugoto alnal bade mal nene MS Bojang Ousmane Itamuru Tasubu.
That was it live from the National Assembly, and it was the appropriation bill formally presented by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mambure Njai. So tomorrow we'll be back for another session, which will be the debate on the estimates presented by the Finance and Economic Minister. Until then, bye for now.